right, everybody. Greetings and welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is, it's June 3rd already, 2024. Today we are with Ashton Forbes, but let's give a quick shout out to everybody that's here. We've already got a ton of people in here, thanks to Ashton tweeting out our show just before the start here. So I see Remo's here, Rob Lee J is here, From Thought is here, Flint Fancy, David Jones Locker, Not Quite Human, Hardy Har Har. Let's see. Sup and Stuff is in the house. Top Tops G, Jersey Dolphins, Kaisi, Joel Winderfield. How are you all doing? Let's see, scroll down. Acra Muse is here. From Thought. Ooh, let's go. Hello, everyone. And Carnundrum is in the house. We're going to have an interesting show today. I do ask everybody to hit that like button early so that we can, it helps the algorithm get more people in here. You know how the drill goes. We're going to chat for a bit, and then it's up to you guys. Your guys will be able to ask your own questions. So if you ask them during the show, I'll highlight them to ask Ashton later. And it's going to be a great show. Ashton, welcome to Conflict Radio, man. How are you?
Hey, doing great, man. It's been a great day. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad, man. It's man, the world's getting so crazy. It's getting ready to. I think the whole world's getting ready to go nuts. So the last 6 months are going to be fire.
Yeah, I think that it all started to go downhill when Harrenby died. Rest in peace, Harrenby.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump right into it. Okay, we're going to talk about the Malaysian Airlines flight, and honestly, I saw this on I saw this a little while ago, and I was a little skeptical about it. But then I started really looking into it, and boy, it seems like this is real. I honestly think that this happened. I really do. I think you're spot on. And let's get into it. You could share your screen if you like, whatever you want to do, and give us a rundown on exactly what you think happened, and then we'll get into the science of it a little bit.
Yeah. And first of all, I want to say that I absolutely believe beyond any shadow of a doubt that what we see in the MH370 videos is what happened to the plane. I have no doubt whatsoever that there's a major conspiracy at play regarding this plane. Even if you took the videos away, I would still be 1,000% sure there's a conspiracy at play. And I would still be sure that the United States government is the ones who are perpetrating the cover-up. They're really one of the only people capable of doing it. When we first started, it was about proving the lie, proving the cover-up was real. And we found that out pretty quickly when you start digging into the old history of the plane, the news articles that were out about it, and the obfuscation, the press releases, the Malaysian Ministry of Defense. Anybody who's skeptical, just look into the evidence, look into the investigation. You will be swayed beyond any shadow of a doubt that something sketchy happened. And with the power of hindsight, looking back at it, it becomes just basically obvious that it was a cover-up at play. And then people always go, well, why a cover up? Why are we covering up this fire event that we proposed? And you go look at those videos, and we're going to look at them in a second here. And you go, oh, well, that's the reason, because we're looking at some orbs blipping the plane either out of existence or teleporting it somewhere else. And that's not exactly the kind of thing you can put on CNN in 2014. People are going to freak out. We're going to have some pretty serious questions, and most people aren't going to believe it. I mean, it's 2024 right now, and people still don't believe it to be real. And science has advanced a lot since then. We've got wormhole papers. We've got, this UFO phenomenon has advanced a lot in the last 7 years from when those DoD Navy videos were declassified. And yet, even now, people can't believe that we could even have this kind of technology out there. So that's just my introduction I wanted to give. And I just want to thank everybody out there who's had an open mind. I think, like you said, the people that come out and they're like, I didn't believe this could be possible. But then I looked into it and I was like, wait, this is crazy. Like, there is something going on here. And you start looking, the pieces all just make sense. So I want to start by showing, we have something called the airplane animation video. This was made by, God, it's been so long now. I'm forgetting. Chris from he's going to hate me. Anyway, I'll think it'll come to me. But one of the earliest podcasts I did, they made this animation video, which is very useful to help figure out for people to visualize what happened with this plane. And I'm just going to keep this kind of short. I mean, I could go for like 4 hours on this plane. I'm going to give you guys kind of the layman's version of this is what we think happened to the plane. You can always go back, look at my Twitter profile. If you want to know more, what I recommend to people is go through my highlights. I basically only highlight stuff related to the MH370 investigation so that people can scroll through it and find all the research investigative pieces that are out there. And I've done some recaps of like old content. So if you go back from like December or January to now, the last 6 months, you should be able to get a pretty good overall explanation of all the evidence and everything sourced and all out there. So this plane, as we can see right now, it's in Kuala Lumpur. It's flying northeast towards Beijing. And the part where this plane ends up going dark is where you see this Igari waypoint up here around 1721. This is like 40 minutes after the plane takes off. So if you guys have been on planes, you know that they slowly increase in their altitude. So 40 minutes in is not very long in. This is like probably right after it's gotten to cruising altitude, like 20 minutes after it's got to cruising altitude. And the last communication that's made publicly available is at that point where it says like 1 minute before the plane goes dark. Good night, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Now, we are pretty sure at this point there were additional communications and they've been classified. And this is part of the reason why there was so much obfuscation, is that what happens here is these lithium ion batteries, 487 pounds ignite on board this plane in the cargo bay. 2 pallets of them are right next to the electronics bay. So you can imagine them damaging the equipment, causing the plane to go dark. And then now it's an emergency event scenario. And what are you supposed to do in an emergency event? You're supposed to turn around, you go to the nearest airport that you can land your airplane safely. And that's exactly what we see this plane do here. Now, we have 19 witnesses, real people, that corroborate this event. There might even be more, but that's just how many I was able to find, or we were able to find looking back through old news reports. You've got Mike McKay, who's off an oil rig about 300 nautical miles to the northeast of here. And all these experts go, well, it's impossible for him to have seen the plane, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at like planes in cruising altitude, they can see really, really, really far. And he doesn't say that he's like looking into the cockpit of the plane. He just sees a plane on fire for a few seconds, and that's it. It gets reported on that he sees the plane crash. There's all this misinformation around it. They end up ruining his life, making him lose his job. He gets vilified even years later. Like he sticks to his story, and they've basically just ruined his whole life. So he sees this plane on fire. The direction that he sees is the right direction and everything on his sighting. And then there's 9 witnesses along this coast between Thailand and Malaysia that hear loud noises at the exact same time. And if you look, people say, oh, the pilot turned off all the equipment. That's actually not even something that's possible. There's we looked through the old articles, and the officials basically said there's no way for the pilot to turn off all the APUs, and like I don't know if there's like a backup as well. But they can't just make the plane go dark in the way that it did. So we have all those witnesses. Then this plane turns around, and where does it go? Directly to the closest airport, Penang. Why does it not go back to Kuala Lumpur? Well, technically Penang's closer. There's an article in Wired that says that this would be the correct location. The elevation difference is better. And because it's a fire event, they have to descend. Because if in the fire event, you have this halon fire extinguishing gas, and it's sucking oxygen out of the plane, which means that you need to depressurize the plane to get more oxygen into the plane, because the oxygen masks on board these planes only last for 15 or 20 minutes for the passengers. And you need to fly low. If you fly too high, there's not enough oxygen. So you need to fly under 10,000 feet. And it turns out right here where we have this plane where I stopped it, there's 8 fishermen 10 miles off the coast between Thailand and Malaysia, like right here, that see the plane flying low. And just recently, the experts looked at this turn. They realized that this turn was a manual turn because it's steeper, or it's a sharper turn than what the autopilot would do. And they also found that the plane did an emergency descent. So again, this rules out the entire pilot suicide scenario, which requires the pilot to go higher in the air and lock the co-pilot out. But if you're flying low, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do if you were trying to asphyxiate all the passengers.
Yeah.
Right away, we can already rule out the pilot suicide scenario. Makes no sense. Never made any sense to begin with. Never had any evidence for it. But just based on the facts here, we can rule that out. And now we have another 8 witnesses. So we're already up to 16 witnesses that corroborate a fire event. And this plane also wasn't dark. 10 minutes later, so 17:30, there's another Boeing 777 pilot who's flying in Narita, and they hear the pilot and or co-pilot through some static. And they say that they heard the MH370. They didn't want to be named because they were probably afraid they were going to get discredited. Like they knew something sketchy was going on. Now, the plane continues and it goes to Penang. And for some reason, it doesn't land at Penang. This is still somewhat of a mystery. I'm going to backtrack a little bit from my previous claim, but because we don't know exactly why it didn't land, it could be that the landing gear was damaged. It could be that they couldn't dump fuel. That was one of the most recent things that we found out, was that if you don't have power you can't dump the fuel. And it's a pretty precarious situation if you have a fire on board the plane to try to dump the fuel as well. So it potentially could have been a judgment call. You can, and according to the flight manual, we're supposed to try to land as fast as you can. And if you can't land with your landing gear, you're supposed to try to land on your belly on land. And then after that, the next thing you're supposed to do is try to land on the water. So for whatever reason, they don't try the belly landing. Presumably, if you have a plane full of another like 6 to 8 hours worth of fuel, you're not going to land on your belly on the land because the plane is going to definitely explode. So the next thing you do is you would try to land in the ocean. And where does this plane go? It goes into the ocean. There are American and Thai exercises going on here in this area. The Cobra Gold had just ended the exercise, and the Cope Tiger exercises were about to begin. So you have all these advanced military assets here that would have been able to track the plane easily. And so it heads off over here to the northwest. They claim that the last communication was at 1822 UTC. Now, I also want to point out that we know this plane was flying low when it got to Penang because the co-pilot's cell phone pings a cell tower. According to the information that we found online, this would have had to have been under 7,000 feet. So this plane had to have been flying low here at this point as well. Now, also we found out that if you're flying lower, you actually move faster as well compared to being further up in the air, which I thought was interesting. Now, what happens the day after this plane disappears? They claim that Subang Air Traffic Control lost contact at 1840 UTC. You guys can go find all the reports from March 8th, 2014. They say that Subang Air Traffic Control lost contact at 1840 UTC, which is weird because a couple days later they changed the time to 1822 UTC. And they claim this was the last time the plane was tracked by military radar. However, just a few days ago, I pulled up from the Royal Aeronautical Society's 2019 analysis of the plane. There's at least 5 radars that would have continued to track the plane at or after this point. There's 2 in Indonesia, 2 in Thailand here, and on these small islands to the west, these are controlled by India. There's a radar as well that would have been able to track the plane. So we have 5 radars that should have seen the plane after the supposed last radar contact. None of them have come public with that information. That's pretty damn weird. And then we have Catherine T, this little sailboat right here. This sailboat is Catherine T's sailboat. She's our last witness. She is what I would consider to be the star witness. She sees a glowing orange plane with smoke coming out of the back of it, flying low and descending with no navigation lights. She's going to Phuket, Thailand from India. And she's weirded out by her sighting. Her sighting is extremely detailed. The moment she lands, she reports her sighting. They recreate the sighting based on her automatic GPS signals to figure out like the direction of travel, and it's all consistent with the plane. Now, this is how we found out about the fire. This plane glowing orange is because of the bromine from the Halon 1301 fire extinguishing devices having a chemical reaction, releasing bromine, which is a halogen gas. Go look at what a halogen lamp looks like. Compare it to the recreations, several recreations of her sighting, visual. It looks just like a halogen lamp. It looks like there's this orange glow kind of coming off of it. So this is right now like how we figured out about the fire event. And then we backtracked and looked at all the other witnesses, and turned out that all of the other witnesses that I could find, the ones that had like reports that you can find in Western media, all corroborate that same exact event. And then we found we had already been tracking these lithium-ion batteries in the plane. And I just literally just right before this did another post about the lithium-ion batteries. Why were they hiding the cargo manifest? Why did they lie about there being no dangerous cargo? And it turns out there's 487 pounds of dangerous lithium-ion batteries on board this plane. And then you realize, well, this is why they had to develop a new cover story. The big thing, the reason why the experts discounted the fire event, because otherwise you look at what we just explained here and you can tell this is clearly a fire event. How do I stop sharing screen, by the way?
I can remove it.
Yeah. You can tell this is clearly a fire event. So the reason why the experts discounted it is because of the cover story. Is that 5 days after the plane went missing, United States intelligence sources, unnamed sources, said that, oh, the plane went into the South Indian Ocean from the Nicobar Islands there. And they said, oh, well, it can't be a fire because the plane wouldn't have made it to the South Indian Ocean. Well, the logical conclusion should have been they're lying about the plane going in the South Indian Ocean. But they said, oh, no, we'll find it in the South Indian Ocean, you know. But it's 10 years later and we found nothing in the South Indian Ocean, literally nothing, not one piece of the plane. We found no black boxes. There's no indication anywhere that the plane actually went in the South Indian Ocean. We have some pings that are just amount to a few rows on an Excel spreadsheet, and that some people did some, 5D chess brain analysis to determine that means the plane went in the South Indian Ocean. Well, it turns out that was just all bullshit. Like, the end of the plane was right there in the Nicobar Islands where Catherine T had seen it. And we should know that because that's what the sources were saying right out the next day. So they developed this cover story. They hide the fact there's this dangerous lithium-ion batteries. And then on March 22nd, 2 weeks after the plane disappears, the press finds out, because they're digging around, that there was this lithium-ion batteries in the cargo. And they get the Malaysian Airlines CEO to admit, yep, there was lithium-ion batteries in the cargo. Well, that's important because they're extremely dangerous. They're banned now in the cargo bay of passenger planes. They're so dangerous that the FAA over each of the last 2 years, even after banning them in the cargo bay, you can't have them in your luggage, blah, blah, blah. There were still 74 incidents last year and the year before. Now we're talking in the passenger area. And they have this thing where, like, your phone starts on fire. They have these bags that you throw it in, and then you start pouring water all over it. And that's just for a battery, the tiny little battery like this. We're talking 487 pounds of these things stacked up on top of each other in cardboard boxes. Nothing could be more dangerous, in my opinion. Like, the reason why they covered that up is anybody that, if they had said right after the fact that that was the case, people would have figured it out. They would have figured out the cover up. And they would have gone, oh, this is why you didn't send up jets to track it. This is why it was flying back to Penang, because it was an emergency event. It all adds up. And this is the part where, like, people that can't think for themselves really struggle, because they just think, I'm just going to believe whatever the government tells me. Whatever the TV tells me, that's what I'm going to believe, instead of using basic critical thinking. So you want to watch the next video, or do you want to ask questions on that before we get into it?
Well, I think somebody has said something here. Toptaz said, I don't get it. There was no communications. There was no communication, even recordings about the failure or crisis before 1822.
Yeah. So again, guys, use basic critical thinking. Okay. So, like, once again, you're being lied to. Okay. There's a literal cover up at play. They have literally just not released the communications. That's it. There are communications. Like, just use your head. It's like, oh, there's no communications. No, they just didn't tell you about the communications, right? We know because we have a B777 that heard the plane 10 minutes after it supposedly went dark. That proves that the communications weren't out. Okay. So we know there should have been communications. Then I'm gonna prove the lie to you guys, right? Prove the lie. The Malaysian Minister of Defense, 7 weeks after this plane disappears, goes and does an interview on Four Corners. You guys can watch it. It's an Australian thing. Just Google Four Corners, Malaysian Minister of Defense. You'll find it on YouTube. He says that the military, he gets asked why they didn't send up jets. And he is the sketchiest guy ever. You can tell he's lying within a few seconds of the interview. And he goes, why would we send up jets? Well, to shoot it down? And the lady's like, no, to track the plane. And he's like, well, why would we do that? We knew it was a civilian airliner and we knew it wasn't hostile. Wait, what? I thought you didn't know what the plane was. How do you know it's a civilian airliner? How do you know it's not hostile? Just think about, how could you know it's not hostile? The only way you can know a plane, a rogue 777, is not hostile is if you have communications with it. That's the only way. Otherwise, it could be hijacked. They could be trying to fly the plane into the Petronas Towers, which are in Kuala Lumpur. It could be a rogue suicidal pilot who's going to crash the plane. Again, it wasn't ignorance on their part. It was malfeasance. So we know they must have had communication with the plane. But we also have a China Times reported Mayday call. You guys can look this up as well. There's actually a Reddit post in the World News subreddit on March 9th, the day after the plane disappeared, that was only reported in China Times. So again, all Western media is covering this up. China Times says the Chinese intercepted a communication from the Thai embassy of the plane, quote unquote, attempting an emergency landing and disintegrating. Now, why is that important? Because that's literally what Catherine T sees, and it's what I'm about to show you in two perfectly in sync videos. Plane flying low, the plane descending with smoke coming out of the back of it. And this is exactly what the China Times reported. This is what Catherine T saw as well. The time of that was supposedly 2:43 a.m. If you take that as to be Malaysian local time, that's 1843 UTC. That's within 3 minutes of the very day the plane disappeared, them saying they lost contact with the plane. Subang Air Traffic Control lost contact with the plane. So once again, guys, and I'm not trying to be rude, but just use common sense. This doesn't require experts to solve this mystery. That's the funniest part about this, is that if you just look at the evidence and just use common sense, you will solve the case. Anybody can. The same reason why a plane doesn't crash in the South Indian Ocean without leaving a debris field. So one more thing I want to say is,
and I mean, there's nothing.
yeah, we have satellites everywhere all over the globe. And back then we had satellites everywhere as well. We have low Earth orbit satellites that they don't go back to the same spot. Like every 90 minutes, they go to a new spot and they keep rotating around the planet so that like twice a day, they've tracked the whole planet. And that's just like one low Earth orbit satellite. If this plane crashed in the ocean and left a giant debris field, we 1000% would have pinpointed its exact location within 24 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, not everything's going to sink. I mean, obviously, there's going to be stuff
There'll
floating.
be thousands of pieces of floating debris, and in the ocean, it's going to spread out everywhere.
Right, can you expand on the Marsat data and why it's bogus?
Yeah. So let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, I can. So let me see here. Actually, I have a video file for this. I'll pull up the video file.
All right.
So when you look at it, and this is one thing where I'm, can't find it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So yeah, if you can pull that up. Okay, so this is the raw Inmarsat data. It's a big Excel spreadsheet. Now on the left, you can see the times. And these are these pings that are going. So you can see 1606 here. The plane takes off at 1642 UTC. Now, one really weird thing is that around 1630, while this plane's just still on the ground, it stops pinging the POR satellite and only pings this IOR satellite, which you see somewhere in the middle of the screen where it says IOR. There's actually two satellites in range of the plane. And it stops pinging one of them and never pings one of them ever again, which is like, wait, what? You just stop pinging one whole satellite? Now, you look at these times, you can see 1655, this plane's in the air, 1656 in the air. Look at all this data. 1707, plane's still in the air here. And you can see me just scrolling through it because I wanted to scroll through it to just show people how much. Now we're at 1803, 1805, 1825, 1828, 1839, and now we've got our first call to the airplane, which goes unanswered with all these zeros. And now what happens after 1839? The data just basically stops. 1840, and then after this, boom, what? 1941, 2041, 2141, 2241, 2313. 10 rows of data is the entirety of the plane flying into the South Indian Ocean. 10 rows of data. We just looked at hundreds of rows of data. I just scrolled down there for like a minute and a half, and then all you get is that at the end here. It's at the end here. This is perfect. Oh wait, no, it's not. Let me go to the end here. Right here. So now you can see, and I take a screenshot of this usually and I highlight it because you can also see these channels. Now there's just like this specific pattern. All of a sudden, like the fourth column over, you can see that it like changes here in terms of like its designation, and you can see this repeating pattern. The entirety of the plane flying in the South Indian Ocean is 10 rows of data for 5 hours. We had hundreds of rows of data for, what was that, hour, 2 hours, hour and a half, something like that. But then 5 rows of data, and then the data picks up again. And they have these arcs that they use. This data you're staring at is what they use to determine the path of the plane. But they don't use the 2313 data, the one where it comes back online again. This data starts to become normal again for like the last hour. They don't even arc that data. And they don't really give an exact reason. They say like the data didn't really fit with what they were trying to model out there, is my understanding. So I'm a database architect. That's my real job. And that means I work with relational databases, which are basically Excel spreadsheets that link to one another, but hundreds of them, if not thousands of them. And when I looked at this data, it took me 5 seconds to realize that something is suspicious here. And so if you're just looking at it logically, you go, where's the point where the suspicion occurs? Well, 1840 is when the data changes. Now, where was the plane at 1840? Oh, it's in the Nicobar Islands. Oh, it's in the exact location that we have a satellite video that has coordinates in it that indicate that location. It's also the exact time that Subang Air Traffic Control, quote unquote, lost contact with the plane the very next day when the plane disappeared. So you look at that and you go, this adds up to a pretty obvious story. Somebody manipulated 10 rows of data on this spreadsheet to make people think the plane went in the South Indian Ocean when it didn't. And we know that because we have Catherine T, who sees the plane around 1840. We have coordinates that indicate the location where the plane was at 1840. And the official communication after the plane disappeared was said it was lost at 1840. So this data wasn't released either until May 27th, 2014. why would they wait till May 27th to release this data? Why wouldn't they just release it the very next day? There could be people somewhere on a boat somewhere begging for help. They could be Gilligan's Islanding out there. They wait 2.5 months to release the data that could be trying to save someone. No, because they're obviously just setting their cover story up. It took them 5 days to invent the idea that, okay, we're going to say the plane went in the South Indian Ocean. And then it took them another 2.5 months to build the fake data to get it out there. And turns out Inmarsat is connected to UK and US intelligence. They've got a bunch of military people on their board as well. So nobody ever corroborated this data. No other satellite companies were like, yep, this data is legit. They say, oh, it's been checked. It's been all the same shitty data has been checked by different people. That doesn't make the data good. That just makes people's analysis don't have any critical thinking capabilities. And it should be obvious that the data is fake. If you can go back to full screen or whatever at this point.
All right.
Remove that. It should be obvious that the data is fake because we searched for 3 years in the location where they claim that data pinpoints where the plane crashed. Above water, below water. We didn't find one piece of the plane. Nothing down there. No black boxes. There was nothing there.
Yeah, they're just wasting money.
Yeah, we just waited $200-some million. Found nothing. And then we have a new scientific report in Nature. Just came out at the beginning of this month. 10 years later. They checked the acoustic signals from the 2 different acoustic devices. There's no signals consistent with the plane crashing in the ocean within like 1,500 plus kilometers of the 7th arc. Like just nowhere near where. There's no consistent acoustic detections anywhere near that time for the plane crashing. And there's more. The debris. Like I'll pull up this image of the debris. I mean, I just don't get how people just don't think clearly. Some debris, like 3 confirmed pieces of debris, maybe like they say it's like up to 40 pieces, but really if you narrow it down to like pieces that could really be from the plane, maybe like a dozen pieces of debris, they wash up in Africa over a year later. But you're like, wait, I thought you had this plane crashing off the coast of Australia. And if anyone just looks at the ocean currents, you can tell right away, this debris should have washed up all over Africa if the location of this crash was correct. And yet it's literally washing ashore in impossible locations that consistent like 100% rule out the South Indian Ocean being the location. So if you flip over to the thing that I just shared right here.
All right, hang on a second. I just want to give a shout out to Jonathan over on X. Just to let everybody know, we do stream live over on X now. We just started it last week. So you guys awesome. In the YouTube
chat, we're going to help out Jonathan here too, because this is where like, for Jonathan, man, this is how easily they lied to you, man. So first thing I want to say is,
he says, let's talk about how if
verifiable serial numbers. So get ready for Jonathan. I want you to pull up your Google right now, man. I want you to Google MH370 flaperon missing serial plate. The unique serial plate was literally missing off the very flaperon you think that we have matching serial numbers for. Just get that in your head. That's how easily you were lied to. There is no unique serial plate that was missing off of the flaperon mysteriously. That washed up in the Reunion Island, which is the only piece that's even feasible to have even theoretically washed ashore from the crash site that we have down here. The crash site's down here in the blue area. This is where they claim the crash site is. This is the ocean currents being modeled out within how long it would take them to get in this location. Yeah. So within 6 months, it's only going to be able to get this far in the blue area. And this is what I want to tell you. The flaperon, they used non-unique part numbers to match the flaperon to the 9M MRO, which I'll be honest with you, I think that can be from MH370. That's not the problem. The problem is that debris literally can't have washed from the crash site. And it's not enough debris to confirm a crash at all. It's only a few pieces. A couple of the pieces that washed up in Africa, I mean, this is Africa over here on the west, guys. This is where the debris washed up over here on Africa, which is literally impossible. Also, by the way, the debris washed up like 14 to 16 months later. Look at down here in the key here. 14 to 6 months is pink. How far can it get in that period of time? Not to Africa. Not to Africa. A couple of the pieces they found in Africa have scorch marks on them, like visible scorch marks. Like if I were to take a lighter and burn this napkin, you're going to see scorch marks on it. There's pieces of debris with like scorch marks on them. And they have the honeycomb of a Boeing. And so people say, well, the debris was planted. No, debris wasn't planted. The debris, what's a better location? So let me flip over from this. So first of all, just looking at this map, you can tell where should the debris wash ashore if the location was correct? Australia. should have washed ashore in Western Australia. We should have tons of debris washing ashore in Australia. How much debris did they find in Australia? Zero. Not even one piece washed ashore in Australia. It's 10 years later. The only bits of debris that they found, few tiny pieces, they want one piece washed up in South Africa, down here. South Africa?
Yeah, and none of it washed up anywhere in 10 years.
Yeah, and so there, in those pieces, the pieces that washed up in Africa supposedly drifted there, whatever. The issue isn't that they could have drifted there. The issue is the time, and that there's no way it could have got there from these locations that they claimed. But what's a better location? So let me show you. Actually, I'm going to show you a couple more images real quick. So here's the radar right here. So I want to point out that this yellow line is where they claim they lost radar contact. Wait, what? Just look at how many circles you've got here. I've got like one here from Thailand, 2 or 3 here, 3 from Indonesia, and another one from India. So we've got 3 different countries that should have been seeing this plane after it lost radar contact. Why has India never spoken up? India's right here in the Nicobar Islands where they claim this plane turned into the South Indian Ocean. Shouldn't they have been able to confirm that? Shouldn't they have been able to release their data? Why would you cover that up? Makes no sense. But let me give you the real killer here. So this is the one that will help out for the people that are my debris people out there, which is one of the number one common questions I get. No disrespect. It's just, if you just look at the evidence, you can see the real story. Okay. So again, here is our search area. You can see the currents go east. I showed you guys the models. The debris should have washed up all over Australia. Now let's follow this current. Oh, look, Diego Garcia military base is right here in the Maldives. Now, if we follow the currents from Diego Garcia, oh, look, all the debris can easily wash ashore in Africa if the debris showed up somewhere near Diego Garcia. Well, it turns out that's the location where every single conspiracy theory is out there says that that's where the plane ended up. In fact, I think that's where the plane ended up too. And if the plane ended up there, then they can just rip some pieces off of it and throw it in the ocean. Or if it's a fire event and what we see in the MH370 videos is real, which is some kind of teleportation, then maybe the plane teleports somewhere over here near the Maldives and then flies to Diego Garcia and a few pieces fall off of it. Now, I would have said that's pretty unlikely for some pieces to fall off of it, but what have we seen happen in the last 6 months? Boeing aircrafts are literally falling apart in the sky. No fire needed. Doors are flying off. Engine cowlings are ripping off. So now I'm like, it's not really that
disappearing.
Yeah, I mean, we just got all kinds of crazy stuff happening with these Boeing aircrafts now. So falling apart in the sky. So to me, what happened here is this debris is from MH370, I believe. I also think that the story that we put forth, MH370X, is the only one consistent with the debris. There's no other stories that are consistent with the debris. Some people think it was shot down in in the South China Sea. How the debris can't get there from there. Jeff Wise thinks the plane flew to Russia or some crap. That he needs the debris to be fake. All these people need the debris to be fake. Even the people that think the plane crashed in the South Indian Ocean need the debris to be fake because they can't get there from there. The only story that says it makes sense is the ones that say that the plane ended up in Diego Garcia, because that's where, if you look at these currents, like that's clearly where the debris went into the water. So that's the difference here between what you get told on TV and what just straight up common sense and looking at the actual evidence and facts will lead you to the logical conclusion. And that's why I say, guys, like, I'm not somebody that really believed in conspiracies. I wasn't somebody who was chasing conspiracies. I just looked at the stuff and I went, this is sketchy as hell. I was like, the truth is just right there. As hard as it is for these videos to believe, which we're going to pull these up right now, chat. Let's do it. As hard as it is to believe the MH370 videos, this is what happened to the plane. I mean, it's crazy enough. It's the story that makes the most sense. So what do we have here? We've got, those are real clouds that we're looking at right there. No question. Nobody says those clouds are fake. Everybody says those are real clouds. The debunkers just claim it's some kind of cloud picture that people put in here. We've got coordinates in the bottom left of this video that are the real location of the plane in the Nicobar Islands. We got smoke coming out of the back of the plane. Can't be cumulus cloud, or it can't be contrails because the plane's too low. The plane's doing an emergency descent maneuver here, consistent with how Catherine T saw the plane at low altitude. And then we're going to see these orbs come in. And people say, oh, this looks like daytime. Why is it daytime? There's no shadows anywhere in this video.
Well, it's our technology.
Yes, our technology, guys. If you think that satellites can't see at nighttime, well, what would be the point of it? It'd be useless half the time, right? So we have technology that can turn daytime or nighttime into daytime. And also what we were able to do is this is really a ground-based computer that is pulling data from satellites, like a whole constellation of satellites. And then they're able to just like log in and pull back this location and show me tracking of whatever I want to track. You know, our satellite capabilities, it's not like 1990s anymore, or 1960s or whatever. Our satellite capabilities have gotten much, much better. And also in the bottom left, it's kind of hard to see here. It says NROL 22. NROL 22 was the first launch of the SBIR system in 2006. That's a pretty weird detail to add to your fake hoax video, especially when it's a real satellite launch for a real satellite system. Now, these orbs, we see these orbs flying in thousands of miles an hour here. They're, you know, doing maneuvers that we would think would be impossible unless you have anti-gravitational or gravity manipulation technology. And they start circling around the plane. You're going to see this second orb. It's very faint, but it's going to shoot across the water and up here next to this cloud. And it's going to get into orientation with the first orb like instantaneously. And they're already forming a triangle before the third orb even gets there, which I think is just wild. Because normally, if I had two orbs around the plane, I would expect it to be like a line where one's on one side and the other's on the other side. And then for the third orb to show up and then to reorient into a triangle, but they're already in a triangle formation. The third orb comes flying in and they're in a perfect equilateral triangle. Like right away, this tells me when you watch this mapping going on here, these aren't aliens flying around in this. This is a computer program that's mapping the plane with these orbs, or they're either homing in on the plane, they're being an AI is controlling them, but it's not people flying around in them. And they're clearly mapping the plane too. The way they circle around it like this, like you can tell there's purpose. And this is why it's not an annihilation event. If you're trying to annihilate the plane, zap it out of existence, you don't need to have this complex mapping and dance going around the plane. You just zap it. Who cares if a wing flies off and goes somewhere else? This is because they're trying to figure out how big the singularity has to be to suck this entire plane through. To me, that's the only logical conclusion to what they're doing here. And that's why they're circling the plane in a basically a sphere. That's been mapped out as well. Once it gets to this cloud, then they go into a ring. And the reason why they're going into a ring here is that if you were to look at this plane from forward on, they're moving around in clockwise, this is clockwise for you guys, orientation. And if you use the right-hand rule in electrical engineering, it would tell you that the vector of this plane, I guess going this way, is going to be backwards. So it's going to be getting pulled backwards. And that's exactly what we see in the second video. It looks like this plane gets pulled backwards into what looks like a wormhole. Now, people would say here, why is this zap white? Well, this tracking system we see here, we don't know what the settings are on it, but we have seen infrared cameras that show white is cold and black is hot. So just because it's white in one video and it's black in another video does not mean that it's like they have the same settings on them. The drone video is like clearly in some kind of thermal layer, and we're going to look at that one next.
Now, could they have just cloaked it?
Well, the problem with cloaking is you see this smoke trail here? The smoke trail just stops. If this plane had been cloaked, then I'd expect the smoke trail to keep going. And this is where the person scrolls over to the right to show us there's nothing else over there as well. So whoever recorded this, and you can actually see they're doing a screen recording, the mouse goes up to the top right of the screen where presumably there's like a start record button up there. And that's where the mouse comes from in the beginning as well, which indicate they hit start record. They watch the plane, the mouse comes into the screen, they move the perspective. This proves we're looking at a much bigger field of view, and they've just cropped it down as well, which that's a pretty damn weird thing to hoax into your video as well.
Well, they were cropping out their personal identification. So
they're cropping out the drone. They might be cropping out other spy planes that were in the area. Like they're limiting the damage to the United States military intelligence here. Now, so I would say, to answer your question, there's a 99% chance that this is a teleportation event, either a wormhole or what we refer to as macroscopic phase conjugation, where the plane is like essentially reverting to energy or a wave function and then gets rebuilt later on. And I'm not talking about like and I'm not talking Star Trek teleportation. I'm talking about like the double slit experiment, like the wave function. When you're looking at it, when you don't look at it, you see the wave function. When you look at it and measure it, it breaks down to not being a wave anymore, being particles.
Do you think that they ripped open a reality, or do you think that they just folded space-time?
Yeah, I think they folded space-time, but I do think that in order for this to be real and possible, we need something called the space-time ether, which says that space is not empty,
Well, I mean
and that there's
that
unlimited negative
exists,
energy.
I think.
Yeah. No, I would say I'm 100% sure it exists, and it's going to be proven true in the future. And let's watch the second video and we'll dig into that. But to answer your question, I'd say there's a 99% chance it's teleportation and a 1% chance combined that it's either annihilation and or cloaking. Although it starts
Yes.
to get weird, like cloaking kind of just becomes teleportation.
Yeah,
Like,
you know, Stassi hit it right on the nose here. It's
yes, I was
Philadelphia
going to say
experiment on steroids.
exactly, because the Philadelphia experiment, they were trying to cloak a ship, and what
Yeah.
happened? They put these powerful electromagnetic fields around it, and it teleported. Because what's really teleportation is that their time is speeding up. So for the people on the boat, they're moving super speed, but for the people on the outside, it looks like they're just instantly going from one location to the other. This is where you could say that cloaking and teleportation have this kind of link because of time dilation, which is that space time. The reason why we call it space time is because time is not constant everywhere. Time depends on how much mass you're next to. So if you reduce your mass, now your time speeds up. And since we don't experience the time dilation when we're talking right now because we're both on planet Earth, and we're both experiencing the same amount of gravity of space, the same amount of bending of space time.
Yeah,
But
it
if you
seems to me that the technology they had for the Philadelphia experiment is the same technology they used here. The only thing new is that they released it with the orbs.
exactly, that's what I would say too. And when was the Philadelphia experiment? It was 82 years ago.
Yeah.
82 years ago. That's a whole lifetime. There's like nobody even alive that
And they
was that old.
disappeared an entire town too.
Yeah, so to me, it's like that this is the part that scares me because one thing I realized that was 10 years ago, those videos right there, that video we just watched. And how long have we had this? How long have we been hiding this? How long have we been hiding gravity and space-time manipulation technology? I would say this goes back to the Philadelphia experiment, might go back even before then, which
Tesla.
is scary to think that we've been hiding science from the world for like 80 years. And I've been talking to engineers and stuff like this because that was who I wanted. After I realized this was real, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to the scientists and engineers. And they pretty much, some of them have just straight up told me that this kind of stuff's real. And other ones have kind of alluded to it and tried to tell me these are the historical scientists you need to look into, like Maxwell and their equations, Kaluza Klein. I could go on and on in terms of listing them. That like basically we've moved away from this idea of space not being empty and this idea of being able to manipulate gravity. And that's why we have all these gaps in our physics right now about dark energy and dark matter and the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. This is just the ether with extra steps, guys. And so in the end, what's going to happen is these videos are going to be proven to be real, and they're going to show us physics that the world simply right now doesn't think is real, but it actually is. And this is why we're struggling from the physics perspective to understand the age of the universe. We don't understand dark matter, dark energy, because we've handicapped ourselves. Like it's like blinding one eye. That's really what it's like. So let's look at the second video, because the first video to me was the video that it got published 9 days or 8 days before that telemetry data that we looked at earlier. So the video had coordinates of the Nicobar Islands, and it was published before the telemetry data was published, which that should just be automatic proof that what we're looking at is real. We're not dealing with some psychic hoaxer that was like, oh, I know that the plane was in the Nicobar Islands at this time. Like,
Yeah, this isn't a new video by any means. This
no,
video
these are
came
10
out.
years old, 100%,
Yeah.
these videos. And so, yeah, it's not like somebody just came up with these. And so, yeah, so the first video comes out before the raw telemetry data was even released. That should just be automatic proof.
I mean, the funny thing is that they would have had to have released these videos before there was any conclusion that there was no debris found.
Oh,
so
I mean,
so if there was
videos
debris
came out
found,
the first video came out 70 days after the plane disappeared, and we never found up anything, not even one piece of the plane. Well, at least the official search didn't. 10 years later, we found nothing. I mean, some debris washes up in Africa. It's like, wait, what? So these videos are telling the real story of what happened in the plane better than any other story that's out there. And how would the hoaxer know? Because if somebody hoaxes these videos, the moment we find the plane, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
We had a $150,000 bounty, real money bounty. Rich people put up their money for the hoaxer to come forward with the source work that they had used for these videos. Like, here's my first take at it where I messed up on the plane or whatever, right? Some absolute proof that they were the ones who did it. Nobody came forward. I've got 180 million impressions on Twitter alone, just my account. There's a video on TikTok of like literally my face going over the videos. That's 40 million impressions on TikTok plus. You think that some hoaxer's not coming forward for 150 million? They're like, oh, well, they don't want to like get the backlash. Well, why would they make a hoax video then? Like they're such a good person, but they made a hoax video about a plane disappearing. It
And
it
there's
doesn't
not
add
just
up.
one, there's two videos from two different angles.
And so here's the second video. So if that first video wasn't enough, we ignored the first video, even though there was absolute proof. We've got coordinates in there. We've got satellite video. No one even knew how satellite videos worked. Even now, they don't know. Like, I think I'm the #1 expert in the public realm who doesn't have like, security clearance related to satellite imagery, that like figured out more about how our spy satellite communicate stuff works than anybody out there just from watching that video, which goes to show why they're going to hide it. Because the amount of information we've gleaned is like, we figured out how the spy satellite apparatus works in the United States. We figured out secret, like hidden, suppressed science that like the world has no idea about, that can explain dark matter and dark energy and the age of the universe and all this stuff. And we figured out how teleportation works, wormholes. Like, I didn't even think wormholes were like a real thing. I thought it was just science fiction. And I find all these scientific papers about wormholes and how they're real, and not just real, but humanly traversable wormholes. You guys just Google humanly traversable wormholes. There's like 3 different scientific papers just in the last few years. They're like, yep, you can survive a wormhole. It's like going through a doorway and you're just on the other side, as opposed to like a black hole where you would get ripped to shreds, or once you go past the event horizon, you can't escape anymore. That's the main difference between a wormhole and a black hole. Otherwise, they're very similar. And what we're going to look at here looks a lot like a black hole, everybody. So this is the drone video. First of all, you can just tell we're looking at a drone here. You can even see the little heat signature of this is where the brain of the drone is, where it lifts up, where all the electronic components are. That's already, to me, looking at this, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of details we're already adding in here, with accurate heat signatures, minute heat signatures. You can see the drone shaking due to some of the turbulence, although these drones are very stable. And then it goes underneath the wake of the plane here, and it shakes even more right there. You can see the shake happen. So you can even see the turbulence from when it goes underneath the wake of the plane. It's way too close to this plane as well. Yeah, it's trailing it. This is an operation. And this is where like people who are in the military, they look at this and go, that's an operation, because you're like way too close to that plane, trailing the plane. They would have had to intercept this plane as well. The drone can't keep up. So it's not like the drone was just flying around. It's like, oh, look, a Boeing 777's flying by. No, this was planned operation. And this is how you realize that those orbs aren't aliens. Like, this is United States technology. This whole thing is an operation. And just watch the minute details of how they zoom in on the plane. The person who's controlling this camera knows that something's about to happen to this plane. So again, this wasn't like, oh, we just randomly caught orbs teleporting the plane away. No, this was planned out 100%. We have 3D dynamic parallax when it zooms in right there. The camera operator, there's like a lag. Like if you play video games, like if in the United States against somebody in Europe or in Asia, there's like a lag when you play. The same thing's happening with the camera. They're manually tracking the plane. That's why they're struggling to keep it in the center of focus, because there's a little bit of a lag as well. And when they zoom in, the shake increases as well, increases accurately. Like, this is a real video. That's a real shake. That's not an effect that was added on. The shake increases proportionate to the zoom. And so we can see these orbs. And right away here, now this version's hard to see, but you see these black trails on the orbs. They're actually in front of the orbs. This is like some type of geodesic. Like, they're making their own space-time in front of them, and they're just being pulled forward by it. Now, these things are called exotic vacuum objects. You can already see the heat signature in the orb, which is also very odd looking. It looks like the Tesla symbol. I found a similar heat signature on a Department of Energy Twitter account post that shows basically the exact same heat signature on a plasma field orb. And it's consistent with plasma physics here. Now, when it zooms in like this, like now we're just seeing an insane amount of detail. We can even see the smoke coming out of the belly of the plane right here, this heat signature. It doesn't line up with the engine. The smoke that you see coming out of it actually lines up with the heat signature on the belly. The smoke is coming out of the AC, the air conditioning and exhaust ports. There's 2 of them underneath the belly. It's going and wrapping around the hull of the engine and then going back. So this is where we realize when we see those 2 trails, that's not even coming from the engines. It's coming from both sides of the plane. And you can see, look at this heat signature morph as well. Like, so somebody went frame by frame with a morphing heat signature in the belly of the plane to fake these videos. Look at the heat signature of the orb. where they go frame by frame, adding this unique heat signature that nobody has ever seen with these forward-facing gravity engines that nobody has ever seen.
Yeah, and they're kind of all in the same spot.
Yeah, and they spin around on their axis as well. And so this is where Bob Greenyer came out and said this is like consistent with low energy nuclear reactions, an exotic vacuum object. I actually was just on with Professor Simon Howell, and we talked about it related to the plasma physics that were involved. I didn't see that question. Was it something about the satellite video?
Yeah, throw that up there.
The resolution. So I think that there was an expert supposedly that posted on Reddit like the day after this video reemerged. These videos reemerged on Reddit that said that it was consistent with, I believe it was 1 meter per pixel, 1 meter per pixel, and that's apparently consistent with what like very advanced spy satellites would have had the capability of in 2014. So I like to do this one in slow-mo, but I can't slow-mo it for some reason. So we're just going to watch it like this. And then you're going to see the event happen here. Poof. Now, if you were watching closely, you will have seen that those orbs actually converge on the plane in the last second. And this was something that the engineer, Salvatore Paez, told me. He didn't really explicitly say it, but he said, Coulomb's gauge, Coulomb's law. So I ended up looking that up when I was trying to dig into the science. And what I found out was that Coulomb's law basically says the electric force increases exponentially as the distance between two forces shrinks. And so what we're seeing here is we're seeing an exponential growth in the electromagnetic force or electric force as these orbs converge on one another, which is exactly what we need in order to induce this singularity, a very, very powerful energy density, so strong that it breaks something called the Schwinger limit, where space-time becomes nonlinear. Just imagine nonlinear meaning ripping through the fabric of space, like what we just saw right there.
Wow, that's just fascinating that we're able to see this.
Yeah, it's wild. And so, the people that are the skeptics and debunkers or whatever say, well, we're looking at video game graphics and they found some similar looking graphic from a 90s video game. There's a lot of problems with it. First of all, it doesn't match. Second of all, if you just take the whole effect, like the move effect of the asset in question, it's not even close to even being similar. They claim that they picked out all the frames. The problem is the asset has 8 frames in it, and we only have 4 frames in our video. And then their argument is that you literally just use your VFX skills and manipulate it to make it look like what it was, to making it look like the drone video, which is literally the same thing as taking an apple and turning it into an orange and saying that the apple was always an orange, which I think is just absolutely absurd. It's also a methodology where if you use that methodology on anything, you would have an unlimited number of false positives, like the apple or orange thing. Like I can turn this camera top here into an orange. I can color it orange and say this is actually an orange the whole time. That's why that methodology doesn't work, because it would produce unlimited false positives. So what I'd love to say here, because it's impossible to prove me wrong, is that as a statement of fact, there is no pyromania shockwave VFX in that video anywhere in there. What you're looking at there is scientifically accurate. That is a real video of a real wormhole, possibly the first one ever seen in the public realm. I am going to stick by that. I dare people to prove me wrong.
All right. So Cenobite78 says he did some calculations, and according to physics, that would require at least a 21-meter satellite in HEO or GEO.
Okay, well, go do your write-up and, we'll take a look at it, Cenobite78. The problem with a lot of these debunkers and Redditors is that they don't have any relevant experience or skills, and they claim knowledge they don't have all the time. Like claiming, no, that's not what a drone video would look like, or no, they don't film in thermal like that. And every single time they get proven wrong time and time again. And then they just come up and they move the goalposts and they come up with some new thing as well. And that gets proven wrong. Like I think the one that's out there right now that was proven wrong recently was this: the reticles aren't right. It's not supposed to look like that from people that have literally never been in the military, never worked on drones or anything. So again, I just don't even bother listening to people like that. Like if you're just gonna make up things that you think wouldn't look that way or whatever, you don't have any credibility. So you go do whatever you want. I've already told you those videos are real. If you want to cope or seethe or whatever, really doesn't matter to me, because not only did I not let up on the gas, but from looking into the science, what we found out is that if you have a space-time ether, which is what we need for this negative energy to create that endothermic cold event we just saw in the drone video, that means that we can essentially access free unlimited energy. In fact, the question comes up is, where are those orbs even getting their energy from to be able to move around like that?
Well, not only that, but the superconductors that would be needed to be able to withstand that type of heat
It's
is
not. So
it's
that's.
stuff that's
Well, yeah, okay. You keep going.
you got to wonder what Amy Eskridge would think of these videos. You know who
Oh,
she is, don't you?
yeah, she would definitely
I-
think that those videos are real. I think, no doubt. Yeah, and Amy Eskridge thing and Ning Lee, Potkanov, like you'll find that a lot Potkanov and Ning Lee specifically, we're looking into anti-gravity using superconductors. And they disappear, their research goes quiet, and it's because they get sucked into the black projects.
Well,
Because
the biggest thing they
Mhm.
did wrong was try to go private with it.
Yeah, I think that
I
for
think that's
Ning
why
Lee, I mean,
If Elon
yeah.
tried to go private, I'm sorry, if Elon tried to go private with anti-gravity technology, they'd take him out too.
Well, I think that when you say private, it's a little bit of a misnomer because Elon Musk is one of the biggest defense contractors in the world. And I think the question is, if he started talking about it, they might take him out. I mean, they've already tried to discredit him when he bought Twitter and turned it into X. And Ning Lee, like, they didn't take her out because she disappeared. She went back to China, but she didn't really go back to China. She just got sucked into the black projects and they started making her work for Lockheed Martin or whatever. Amy Eskridge's issue wasn't necessarily making it go private, but she did a private company in this venture with her dad, Richard Eskridge, who was like one of the lead technical advisors at NASA Marshall's Alternate Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah, it's right here in
That's weird.
Huntsville, Alabama. And she actually claimed that he has an anti-gravity device, that he was one of 5 people to create one. So
Wouldn't surprise me if he did, yeah. And had a unification theory. That was early on. One of the things I found, ER equals EPR, is the idea of a wormhole on the macro scale being fundamentally equivalent to a quantum entanglement or quantum teleportation, essentially. And what I was going to say is what Amy did was that she started this company, but what she wanted to do is she wanted to make the information public. And in that same interview that I think you were referencing about her dad, she talks about there's different factions. One of them's like, go ahead, publish it, publish your paper, which, by the way, her paper never got published. And then the other one's going, we would kill you. We would kill you if you try to do this.
yeah.
And I think that the reason why she ended up disappearing, and I'm just speculating here, I've been told that she committed suicide, and I don't really have a strong reason to doubt it, but I can understand why people would, 100%. Is that she's just speaking off the cuff. Like, of course, she's drunk in that interview,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
She's drinking,
Yeah.
but she, like, when people drink, that's when they tell the truth. And she's naming names. She was naming specific guys and stuff like that. And she's like, this guy's a douchebag, and that guy's, and I'm like, man, like, imagine if like you have a job, right? And then you go and you get drunk and do this off the cuff interview, and you're just talking shit about everybody at your work. Now imagine your job is anti-gravity research. Yeah, those are generally the people you want to, not really talk too much about. If you have loose lips when you get drunk, like, maybe not talk about. So what I do like to say is that I've become more spiritual the more I look into this, because I begin to realize, in my mind at least, that those videos being real and the science behind them implies that our universe is a construct, and that means that there must be a creator. And it also makes me think of the idea of reincarnation making the most sense, where our bodies are simply a vessel for our souls, and that our souls, there might be some universal consciousness. The universe may even be alive. We might be the universe. I'm not sure. But why I think it's interesting, I think that Amy's spirit is with us right now. I think that she's with this. Whoever is able to get this information out about this technology, Amy is right there. Like this movie from the 90s called Angels in the Outfield, where the Angels help the players, is actually the team, the Los Angeles Angels, help them out with being a better baseball team. And I love the end. It's actually Joseph Gordon-Levitt when he was a kid. He the guy's got one last pitch to like strike the guy out, and he has no juice left. That he's got to get pulled or whatever. And the coach and Joseph Gordon-Levitt talk, and they say basically they're just gonna make him think that there's an angel with him, even though there's not. And so he starts doing the angel thing, and the whole stadium starts doing it as well. And of course, he ends up striking him out, because it's the matter of just, if you think that there's that angel with you, It will, get your mindset into a situation where you can go beyond your limits. And I think that Amy's with us. I think that Thomas Bearden is with us as well, who passed away a couple years ago. And I'm 1,000% convinced that Thomas Bearden knew about all this science. He was doing his best to get it out there. I don't think he was killed or anything like that. I think he just died of old age, but he never lived long enough to see it go public. And I think that when it happens, those people will be with us in spirit.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Amy Eskridge is I've just been doing such a deep dive on her because I'm going to do a big show on her coming up. I guess whenever I'm done doing what I'm doing. But your name came up a lot with that because the post you made about how she was actually complaining that the government was inserting thoughts into her brain to try to get her to kill herself. She literally said that. And here we are 2 weeks ago, they're in Congress talking about how they have that technology.
Yeah, Havana syndrome. Oh, I'm almost positive. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I would say that Havana syndrome is probably a byproduct of this type of technology. Even in Congress, they're talking about these people are at Air Force bases and then weird technologies happening, and then these veterans can't even get healthcare because there's no diagnosis code for Havana syndrome. If you know about how healthcare works, I do because it's my job. Is that you need a diagnosis code in order to get treatment. Every single order that gets put in has to have a diagnosis code related to it. But if you've got no diagnosis for your issue, then you can't get treatment. And imagine that you can take the same technology that the orbs use or that a UFO uses and turn it into a gun and shoot those beams at people. It's going to mess up your whole body.
Yeah, and she was just getting ready to film a documentary with Stephen Greer, and she specifically mentions that Lou Alexandro is the guy to stay away from. He's disinformation.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a lot of that,
coming from an anti-gravity researcher, I mean, if she tells you to stay away from somebody, you should probably stay away from them.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to talk about opinions of UFO people, I don't have any high opinions of really anybody in the UFO community. I think that Dr. Greer is actually the one I have the highest opinion of because I'm sure that the whistleblowers that he spoke to, like he spoke to Thomas Bearden a bunch. He spoke to Paul Size. These guys, the ones that are talking to the actual engineers, the government engineers, those are the ones I want to listen to. Now, when it comes to the CE5, Ambassador Biju from the Andromeda Galaxy, you kind of lose me there, to be honest with you. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. Sorry, what?
Commander Thor from Venus.
Yeah. You lose me on that stuff. But when it comes to technology and the guys who are like literally working and engineering this stuff, like that's legit. Yeah, and the more I've dug into this, if you had asked me a year ago, I'd have said, yeah, there's probably aliens. Maybe they're visiting us. I don't know. Now I'm like, shit, was the whole aliens thing just a psyop to get people to not pay attention to what the technology can really do and that we've been developing this for 80 years since the Philadelphia experiment? The more I learn, the less sure I am about what the whole situation is about non-human intelligence in general. Like, could be future humans that have, we've got some kind of weird time causality loop going on. It could be sea creatures that are living in bubbles at the bottom of the deepest oceans. It could be cryptids
in Antarctica.
Anything. Yeah, Antarctica. Could be honestly anything. I have no idea. Frankly, I don't even care. Care. I just want to get the technology out there because when you look at that, this technology, the ether, and these quantum fluctuations in the vacuum and the virtual particles, all the bullshit the physicists use to explain the ether without saying the ether, that leads to free energy. And now I'm going to have to stop using the term free energy because it's confused so many people out there. Yeah. There's nothing in this world that is free, first of all. And even with free energy, the better term is called over unity, which is that you can tap in to empty space because it's not empty. And you can produce more energy out of your system than what you're locally putting in. And this is where people say, no, that's impossible. You're breaking the first and second laws of thermodynamics. But we're not. We're opening our system up to that vacuum energy. And that's the 0 point energy. You'll hear it called. It's also just another term for the ether.
Yeah, and what is the waste product of that energy?
Yeah, nothing.
That's another thing to look at.
It's like the waste product is essentially like if I go to the ocean and start teaspooning little spoons of water out of it, am I going to ever make the ocean lose its depth? No. A teaspoon of water out of the ocean is literally, no matter how many teaspoons I take, is never going to have any impact on the ocean. Now imagine that times like several quadrillion, because that's how much energy there is in the ether. We are so insignificantly small that we can't ever even imagine trying to put a dent into the amount of energy that's coming, that could come out of the ether. And that's why it's the best source of fuel for our civilization, is that we can extract it anywhere. We can extract potentially unlimited amounts. And then the problem is the cost, is that we have to build a pretty complicated machine, a device, an over unity device, in order to extract it. But what's the benefit? No pollution. For unlimited energy. That thing can just run forever, run your whole house. The problem right now is that since we're just dumb monkeys, that are in the year 2024, it's relatively expensive to produce still. But this is why we should be producing them now, so that we can get it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, turn it into an industry, so that so that everybody can have one. And then we don't have to worry about burning coal. We don't have to worry about nuclear power. All this stuff is obsolete. And we can fix the laws of physics, because the answer is the second law of thermodynamics, which would say you can't get more energy out than you can put in. Well, we're definitely going to violate that, because we're going to open our system up to the ether, and now we're going to get more out. We're going to create a non-equilibrium system, which is going to suck that energy into our system, a negative entropy system. And then the first law of thermodynamics, which says you can't create or destroy energy. Well, we don't have to worry about that either, because the ether represents unlimited energy. So it's not that we're creating or destroying; we're just borrowing it from the ether. We're taking teaspoons of water out of the ocean, So this is where it's like, you might say you want to rewrite those laws, but it's more of a matter of just reinterpreting them. And that's what I love about the physics the best. This is also how wormholes work, because you're just bending the laws of physics. You're not breaking them.
All right. So now is the time for questions, guys. If you guys have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I do have one. Do you have the video you can queue up of the orb going through the smoke trail?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this was a recent find, the smoke trail orb. Wow. That one, I was like, I couldn't believe that this got found.
That's what got me on it. And let me ask you this. Is it, with the same with the Philadelphia experiment, do you think it's possible that, maybe tomorrow or someday, 50 years from now, maybe that, we'll have a plane shows up flying out of the sky and crashing somewhere with a bunch of dead people on it?
In this case, no, because I think that there's evidence that this plane was just like warped over towards the Maldives. We found those pieces of the debris. I think this plane teleported somewhere near the Maldives. We don't know exactly where. The right-hand rule would say this plane's getting sucked backwards, and it's going to the east, so that means it's getting sucked back to the west. I think that it teleported somewhere near the Maldives and then flew to Diego Garcia military base from there.
So you think it was able to fly after being teleported?
I think so, yeah. In fact, I would argue that the teleportation may have sucked the energy out of the batteries as well, which would have stopped the fire. But we don't know for sure. I mean, it becomes very speculative at that point. What we do know is there was a B777 fire suppression device that washes up in the Maldives, which is pretty damn weird. It's got a visible serial number on it, but just never gets looked into. Gets reported on as a bomb. There's 20 islanders who are on this small island. It only has 33,000 people. 20 different people see the plane flying low, headed towards Diego Garcia. Several of them see the red and white stripe of Malaysian Airlines on it too. So it's like, well, these people all just hallucinating the MH370? The only reason why they got discredited is because people couldn't figure out how the plane could be coming from the west and not from the east.
Yeah,
well, the answer is the plane was teleported over there.
Yeah, some people claim that once it got to Garcia, it was renumbered and they shot it down over Ukraine.
It's too complicated. I mean, so it gets to Diego Garcia, and then what? Now you're going to fly a Boeing 777. You're going to just renumber it and fly it from Diego Garcia to Amsterdam, and then have it fly from Amsterdam to over the Ukraine and get shot down. And now you need another 300 people, because there's a completely different number of people on that plane. So the cover up just gets too complicated for that. But I understand this is the problem though too, where like, just because there's a conspiracy theory out there, some people want to tie everything in the world together. A lot of people are just looking for answers, and they want to tie everything together. What I would argue against those people is just because there's a conspiracy theory out doesn't mean that everything's a conspiracy theory. And don't try to look for everything to line up. Just look at the evidence in totality, and then find out what story makes sense from there, and then stop. Don't try to say, okay, well, now this other plane died. We need to tie that plane to this plane. Like, don't do that. There's nothing that ties the planes together. There's no credible evidence that does so. And this is where you lose credibility when you do that, especially if you're somebody who's a conspiracy theorist. And this is why I say too, like, I don't tie sacred geometry to this stuff. I don't do psychic readings or any of this. I don't need any of that stuff. We got enough hard evidence. I don't need people using psychic readings or remote viewings to tell me what they think happened to the plane. I've got hard evidence. I've got an orb right here going through the smoke trail. Look at that. That's accurate fluid dynamics right there. These are real orbs. This isn't some orbs that were added in. That's a real particle smoke trail behind the plane. To me, looking at this is like, this is undeniable. And the debunkers are trying to say this is compression. That is not compression. That's not even how compression works. Compression, you lose quality. That's how compression works. If this was compression, you wouldn't see this. It would make this go away. The fact that actually it strengthens the argument. If this is lower quality and we can still see this very obvious distortion of the smoke trail when the orb goes through it, that means that it's like even more likely to be real. This is essentially like taking a bunch of smoke and then you running through it and then having the smoke kind of like blow off of you when you get through the smoke. That's what this is. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me what's going on here. All right. So I guess I'm not seeing any questions at all. Let's see. Somebody put one about how you're hiding replies on posts about that prove smoke trail.
Let's not go to this guy's anymore stuff. This is one of these debunkers. I'm not interested in his comments. He trolls like every single one of my interviews, and let's go to some other people that aren't the
Jonathan
same guy.
says that he hopes he has no questions. He's ready for one of your streams. Hopefully, there's one tonight.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do one tonight. We'll see. It's already starting to get late, but maybe. But yeah, so like now I'm more, I don't even really care about debunkers out there. There's some people that it doesn't matter how much evidence there is. It doesn't matter. We have a orb going through a smoke trail. They're never going to believe this stuff to be true, no matter what. They'll always move the goalpost, which is ironic because they say, well, Ashton, what are you going to say when they find the plane? I'm like, what year do you think it is? It's 2024. What are you going to say when they never find the plane? There's some people that, like, no matter what, they can't believe that a conspiracy can exist.
Why would the government hide this sort of stuff? And let me ask you this: why would they target this plane?
Yeah, and so the free-scale semiconductor engineers on board are definitely the target. We were talking about superconductors, semiconductors. Semiconductors and plasma physics are basically the prerequisites for what we see in those videos. Superconductivity, electrons flowing freely, coherent electrons, are what I think allows for the anti-gravity effects. That's what Ning Li and Potkanov were looking into. Sure enough, we got scientists on there that are looking into that. In fact, I was talking to Mike Harris. He's the one that broke off. He was a consultant for Motorola when Freescale broke off from them. He said Motorola was looking into superconductivity in the late 1990s as well. So there's 20 engineers on board this plane, which is way too many. They're very important people according to the company themselves. They were tied to United States Aerospace and Defense. This is this sticks out as much as the batteries stick out. You're like, wait, these are the guys. This is the reason why we did this. So in my opinion, this was a message to our adversaries and to steal these people, to bring them back into the fold, or you could argue, eliminate them as a message to these other countries. But since we think it's a teleportation event, I think that we brought them in. Now, then the question is, well, where are they now? Where are the other people? Did anybody else survive? And the truth is, I don't know. I'm not psychic, but my guess is this didn't go completely as planned. And some people, like in the Philadelphia experiment, didn't quite make it.
And to the people that say the video is faked, do me a favor, go ahead and fake your own video, and then bring it on Conflict Radio. Send me an email that you've got your own video faked, and we'll bring you on, and you could tell us how you did it.
Yeah, especially too that this is the part I love as well, is they're like, oh, somebody just faked this in a couple hours. A lot of these like debunker people are like, oh, someone could do that in a day. I'm like, well, go do it then. Just spend your day instead of spending some of these people have been stalking me for months and months, for 9 months, spending hundreds and thousands of hours trying to debunk the videos. Okay, if it's so easy to make the videos, make a different one, which is much detail as this, which is much real world details in the science, and try to trick me with it. Try to trick anyone with it. Right? Let's see how well you do. Like, these videos have people that are scientists getting their minds blown, people that have worked with satellite videos or satellite capabilities having their minds blown. You're not going to be able to fake something like this and trick people like this. So, and there's a reason why nobody has done that to date, is that these videos are real. Nobody can make up a story like this with these videos and the level of detail these videos have done. Who leaked the video? Somebody said in the chat. I've identified the leaker as Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lynn. So you guys can go look up his case. He checks every single box to have had access to these videos. The time frame of his deployment on the spy plane, it was within 1 month of this happening. He had the right position to have access to the videos. The government came down on him super hard, tried to get him for espionage, ended up having to admit there was no evidence of espionage. The psychological profile of the person that leaked these videos cropped all the information, fits Edward C. Lynn. His lawyer even argued that the classified information and questions available on the internet, like there's not that many people as well that have been charged with these types of charges. So like I'm 99.9% sure this is the guy that leaked the videos. Now, did he leak them directly to Regicide Anon, who uploaded them? I don't know. My guess would be that he leaked them to somebody else, and then that person put it out there on the internet, and then bada bing, bada boom, Edward C. Lynn gets screwed.
What took so long for finally somebody to like really put 2 and 2 together with the videos? Like, it's been 10 years, you know, what took so long?
That's a great question. I think that we had to have our collective conscious rise to the point where it was possible. And really almost nobody has been. It's just been me. And I've begged people to look into them because I went, this is way too weird. Way too many real world details. The satellite video is a real Citrix session, like just a remote terminal Citrix session. Somebody on their computer doing a screen recording into the real database, which is probably on the other side of the world, you know, pulling that stuff up, and they've cropped it as well. I'm like, that to me is like, okay, somebody's faking that. What? How?
You know, you gotta wonder if some of these scientists, the 3 scientists that were on board, were looking out the window going, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Or maybe somebody pressed the VIP button, the help me button, you know. There's different scenarios that are possible. Like this could be a rescue attempt, this could be espionage or counter espionage or a message to our enemies. I can't divine the motivations of the United States military and why they did this. I do know they screwed up when they filmed this because holy shit, that was risky. I mean, look what happened. The video's leaked out, and now some random dude 10 years later is like, wait a minute, I'm going to dig into this and find out, oh, yep, there's actually a real conspiracy going on. And it turns out there's all this suppressed science out there that perfectly explains the videos that people have been blabbing about. Dr. Stephen Greer has been interviewing these people. There's, you know, way too much corroborating data. And that's the thing, too, is that, you know, this is why I want the investigation to be a blueprint for how other people can do investigations like this with real world cases, because it goes to show you don't have to be an expert. You know, shouldn't even be listening to people that call themselves experts. You just use common sense. And the reason, though, why that we only now could accept the videos to be real is, first of all, like the UFO stuff has got more in the zeitgeist in general. People are more open to the idea of technology that's exotic. The Trump satellite picture that he leaked or put on the internet in 2019 that shows pretty similar capabilities to what we see in the drone video. All the drones of video compared to just one picture, but it has very similar resolution capabilities. So it starts to open our mind up to going, I wonder what satellite capabilities really are. And this is why they came down on Trump so hard for even posting it, because even just posting a picture gives people like some context as to what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Those UAP videos, the Navy declassified in 2017 that the New York Times wrote about, we needed that too. I didn't even know that we filmed in infrared back in 2014. Like I didn't even know that the military used infrared cameras. I just assumed they were all optical cameras. If you go check out the spy satellite capabilities, and again, I'm probably the number one expert in the public on these now, there's only 5 optical satellites left in outer space. Only 5. We've got like hundreds, or at least probably over 100. There's only 5 that have optical capability. The rest are all radar and infrared satellites, which should tell you that we're not looking through the Earth through the little binoculars down at the Earth anymore. We're pulling data back and then we're rebuilding it. It's like the Dark Knight. In the Dark Knight, you know how he uses the phones to make this like echo, like 3D visual. Like that's what they're doing now. That's what they're doing. It's like we're way beyond the old school technology. So, and then the last thing is the wormhole papers. Juan Maldacena wrote one of those papers, Humanly Traversable Wormholes. And he's also a proponent with Leonard Susskind of ER equals EPR, which is a unification theory of quantum mechanics and general relativity. And that's what we need to understand this stuff. And I think that even now in 2024, we're still like, if I hadn't come along and pushed this, not to toot my own horn, I think another 10 years could have gone by and still people wouldn't believe these videos are real. I think it's going to take us to actually be able to teleport an object, like teleporting my phone from here to here. And then people will look back at these videos and go, wait, is that real? Is that really how it works?
Well, I mean, you gotta kind of hand it to them. I mean, this isn't the kind of technology you want to get, into the hands of say terrorists or any of our adversaries, so to speak. So, I mean, in a way, you gotta kind of. I mean, did anybody know the nuclear bomb existed before we used it?
Great example, man.
You know?
Great example, because people actually thought it was not possible. Like,
Yeah.
people did not realize what E equals MC squared was really capable of until we dropped the bomb. And now we talk about nukes like there's still some kind of devastating threat. Nuclear weapons are nothing to us anymore. If we have
Oh,
orbs like that, that's nuclear weapons like just laughable compared to that type
and
of threat.
and it's funny to me how people post like, oh well, the United States is testing the Minuteman rockets, blah 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 blah. If you think we're going to use Minuteman rockets to deliver our nuclear warheads, you're insane. We could
We're gonna
teleport
teleport it
them.
with some orbs.
We'll teleport them with some orbs there, and they'll never see it coming. I mean,
Or
that's
just use our directed energy weapons from our satellites in outer space and just zap you from a distance, like that Iranian president's helicopter just mysteriously crashed as well.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's
people got to
hoping.
get on board with what's we really
That's
got going
hoping
on.
we have this tech. I mean, it could have been very well been the Chinese telling the United States military, "Hey, watch this plane. Watch what we're going to do to it."
Well, and that's the thing too, is that this is why you pull this off. So what I would say is that this is the sick part, is that even if the United States admitted this, I have no doubt whatsoever that the vast majority of Americans would say that they would excuse it 100%. Now, I don't know that we killed all those people, so that's the reason why it's not necessarily. I haven't accused them of murder. It's not looking good though. But I think most Americans would say this was justified if it prevented China from getting that very technology. If those people, those engineers, knew how to make those orbs work, I think most Americans would say it was justified in the interest of national defense. In fact, national defense is the reason why all FOIA requests around MH370 get denied.
Yeah.
And so that's the scary part around it, is that I think that's what's going on. Now, China did not do what we see in those videos. And the reason is because we're filming it. The United States is filming it. And also because China hacked the Malaysian government the next day. And on March 9th, they hacked the Malaysian government, did a sophisticated reverse engineer or social engineering hack. And they stole the crisis meeting minute notes of MH370 and classified information about the plane. Now, why was Malaysian Airlines covering up the cargo? They might have been covering up communications we talked about early on. China was trying to figure out what happened. They're trying to figure out what happened. They posted some satellite images. Just go ahead and Google MH370 China satellite. You're going to see 3 objects around some other object at low altitudes. It looks very similar to our satellite video. I think that's China saying like, hey, we saw what you did, or, we give up, or, something like that. It's a message from one government to another. And you might say, oh, well, why would they not say something? Nobody's going to believe them. The United States has complete control over the media. If they can convince people that a plane crashed into the ocean without leaving a debris field, China comes out and says the United States orbed the plane, they're gonna get laughed at on CNN. Don Lemon's gonna say, China thinks it went in a black hole, or some bullshit like that.
So Mandolin wants to know if there's any research into any other side effects of tapping into the ether.
Yeah.
Would you know about that or not?
I don't think you're gonna get have mutations and become a mutant person or anything like that. But there's a direct connection between extracting free energy and gravity manipulation. There's a direct relationship. A lot of these free energy devices, when you turn them up really strong, they start to lose weight. And that's because I think you're literally bending space-time. The same way where you have a connection between cloaking, the Philadelphia experiment, and bending space-time as well. As I think all this stuff is linked. That's why we call it space-time. So I think that at small scales, using an over unity device that just powers your house, not going to have any negative side effects. If you're to turn that up times 1,000,000, then yeah, I think your over unity device might just lift off the ground, or you probably don't want to be too close to it because it could be creating a gravitational anomaly right around it. So that's my belief. I don't know it for a fact, but
yeah, and I don't think they actually cloaked the ship during the Philadelphia experiment. I heard that it showed up in Charleston Bay, and then it went back to Philly.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that
I mean, they might have been trying to cloak it, but they actually teleported it. That's how.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying, is there's a relationship there. Is like when you cloak all the electromagnetic signatures using very powerful degaussers, what ends up happening is you achieve space-time manipulation. Space-time manipulation is teleportation. Yeah. And once you realize too that your two clocks can tick at different rates. and that time is not fluid. This is like, if this clock is ticking faster and this clock is ticking slower, it's going to look like teleportation from one perspective to the other. So like if you take the movie Interstellar, if anyone doesn't understand time dilation, watch the movie Interstellar. It's actually, that's, the physics is real. It's kind of, you know, they've exaggerated it, but it's real. If one party, Matthew McConaughey, goes to this planet that's next to a black hole, large amount of mass, and they go back to the space station after just being there for like an hour, and it's already been 30 years for the person on the space station. So how does that make sense? The way that makes sense is if you're on the space station and you're looking down at Matthew McConaughey through a telescope on the planet, it's going to look like he's going in super slow-mo. And if you're Matthew McConaughey and you're looking up the space station from the planet, the space station is going to look like it's going super speed. Well, what does that sound like? That sounds a lot like teleportation if the space station is moving at super speed. Imagine localizing that effect around a ship or around a plane. This is how that plane is going to appear like it goes from one spot to another, because our time, we're the ones who are moving in super slow-mo, and that plane is just going super fast. So this is how people should think about this idea of teleportation. It's really just like Quicksilver, super speed, and the X-Men. You know, think of like the X-Men movies where Quicksilver all of a sudden is flying around and they do those montage, or not really montage, but those little clips where he puts his headphones on, he's listening to music, and he's just rescuing everybody, and everybody else looks like they're slow. And then everybody else, all of a sudden, it looks like Quicksilver's just teleporting around, but he's just moving really, really, really fast compared to them.
Yeah. Sassy or David Gosling says, says something about the passengers' phones were still being picked up 9 hours later. Have you seen any?
4 days later.
4 days later?
19 families that signed a joint statement saying they could still call the cell phones of their loved one, begging the government to try to triangulate the phones. Did they? No, they didn't. Why would you not look into the phones still ringing? In fact, one of them proved it on TV. CNN had some fake dog shit, sorry for swearing, but fake expert come on and say, oh, your phone can still ring if it's underwater. No, it can't. It also doesn't ring if you're like outside of cell phone service, and there's no cell phone service in the South Indian Ocean. Yeah, if this phone goes underwater for like 15 minutes in the salt water, it's going to go dead. If you turn off your phone right now and call, or have your friend turn off your phone and call them, it's not going to ring either. It's going to go directly to voicemail. So even if it was 1 or 2 phones that were like had one ring, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But when 19 family members are like crying on TV, begging people to look into it, this is another reason why the plane didn't go to 10 years or 50 years in the future. You know, those phones were somewhere on Earth within the cell phone tower range. And again, Diego Garcia. I mean, I'm just saying, guys, I don't know for a fact it ended up Diego Garcia, but if I am putting money on it, I've just put it all on Diego Garcia.
All right. Chris Hay wants to know who leaked the video.
Yeah, so I think I already answered that with the Edward C. Lin thing, right, earlier. So just go back on that. I don't want to repeat all the information about that. Yeah, so just go back and check out the Edward C. Lin part about 20 minutes ago or less. Most likely Edward C. Lin. You can Google or you can look on my Twitter, search for Edward C. Lin. I've done like 5 follow-up pieces. I sourced all the news articles around him. The guy checks every single box. You know, if this was a murder investigation, which it's not, I'm not saying Edward C. Lin's a murderer, but we'd have enough evidence to pin Edward C. Lin. He would be the #1 suspect by far when nobody else is even remotely close. I looked up everybody out there has been charged with willful retention of classified data, espionage, blah, blah, blah. Nobody else is even, most people don't even check 1 box. Edward C. Lin checks like 10, 15 boxes. So, yeah.
All right. And Renee Cruz says she loves the infrared colors in the videos there. Here's a question. Yeah, cool. Did they take the Chinese scientists off the plane before it left, or did they get them off after they teleported to Diego?
Yeah, probably after they probably teleported, I think, near the Maldives, you know, some kind of slingshot effect. We think that there's a 4th orb. That's why we've got this sign right here, 4 orbs. The idea is you are slingshotting, you're having your phase conjugate orbs, the ones that are making the triangle formation. They're the ones that are causing the breakdown of space-time. So that's like, let's say over here, or maybe I'll say over here to make it easier for you guys. And then you have your 4th orb over here, like in the Maldives somewhere. And then you have that event happen where they converge on the plane. Poof! All of a sudden, the plane's over here in the Maldives. And it's probably in the sky in the Maldives or wherever that other orb is. And then now it just keeps flying like normal. Like whatever speed it was going before, it's going that same speed. Maybe the battery fire has been put out, and now you just go and land at Diego Garcia. Now, some of the engineers I talked to said that you can also reduce the inertia, which theoretically would, if we advance this technology even more, like it's 2024 now, maybe now we can like literally teleport the plane like into the hangar in Diego Garcia, like stopped. But I think that back then that technology seems really advanced, but it's not like it's just straight up magic can do anything. It still probably could get much, much more advanced, which that should be pretty scary. Is that even though that technology is like beyond unimaginable for us right now, for the black world, the military, like that's probably still can get much, much crazier compared to what we saw there.
Do you think it's possible the batteries were on the plane actually powering something that was needed for the teleportation to take place?
A lot of people have asked that, said, well, maybe there's a reason. I don't think so. I'm almost pretty sure we can rule it out at this point, actually. The amount of energy needed to pull off what they do there is so far beyond what those batteries can provide. Again, those batteries would be like a drop in the bucket compared to what we need with that. And because the ether presents unlimited potential energy, like setting up an oil pump over an oil deposit or whatever, where you're just pumping the oil out, we don't need the batteries to produce the energy. Now, if anything, I would say the batteries could be used as some kind of like homing beacon to figure out exactly where they want to be, the orbs want to be. But I don't think that they were at the center of mass. It looks like the orbs are circling around the center of mass of the plane. And if that's the case, then unless the batteries are in the exact center of mass of the plane, that doesn't make sense either. So there could be something going on with them, but just it's hard to say.
All right. So Chris Hayes says, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So your physics class probably told you that the Michelson-Morley experiment ruled out the ether in 1885. First of all, I want to say in 1885, people were riding around on horses. So not exactly updated. You should check out the Sawtooth version where he went and double checked it and found that there actually might be an ether. And just recently, there was somebody else that posted a video where they take this interferometry, which is lasers, and they're trying to measure if the lasers like slow down or whatever, and they spin it around, and they're trying to figure out if there's like any movement of the interference pattern, and then there's none. But there's none if you spin it around horizontally. But if you spin it around, put it on its side, and spin it around vertically, then all of a sudden you see the interference pattern shift. So I think that it's very likely that we misinterpreted the Michelson-Morley experiment. And any time when there's just like one experiment from 1885, 150 years ago, I think we should probably at least deserve to look back at it and figure out, like, did we interpret that experiment correctly? Because what they concluded was either there was no ether or the ether must be moving with the Earth. And then general relativity came along with Einstein, and they just moved away from the ether. And now we're moving back to it, where we're talking, oh, well, there's quantum fluctuations in the vacuum, the 0 point energy. And they talk about virtual particles. What the hell is a virtual particle? Where does a virtual particle come from? The truth is just right in front of us. Space isn't really empty. And electromagnetic waves require a medium. All waves require a medium. Sound waves require air. Water waves require liquid. So why wouldn't electromagnetic waves require a medium as well? So once you realize that space is not empty and that we need this medium out there, what is the medium? I would argue that the medium of the space-time ether is the canvas. And then the paint on top of that canvas is mass and energy, everything we see around us. And if you peel that away, what do you get? You get the ether. And what do we look like we're looking at in the MH370 drone video? I'll pull it up one more time. I'm going to pull up the slow-mo one. I'm going to show you the part. If you're a physicist, what I'm about to show you is the most important video in the history of the world. What you're seeing right here completely tells you all of the things we don't understand correctly right now about physics. Right there, that negative energy, that cold endothermic event, that cold explosion. We're ripping through the paint to see the canvas on the other side. That's what we're looking at right there.
Yeah. What is that? What's through there? Could anybody go through there?
Yeah, it's humanly traversable. And so the plane can go through there. There's no event horizon, so you're not going to get ripped to shreds by the gravitational forces. The only thing that can explain what we're looking at here, this negative energy event, negative energy is essentially just energy that is coming from the ether, coming from its original source. Wow. I mean, looking at that right there with this cold event, because that's a pitch, that black means it's like as cold as can be. That type of event that, this is the only, I've tried to look around. I don't think there's ever been an endothermic event recorded other than this in the public sphere. This is the first one. And so this is why it shows that the science has simply been suppressed from us. And anybody who doubts me, I'll just say, well, you're going to get proven wrong over time. So, the scientists, the physicists make up fake stuff. They say, well, we're going to come up with dark matter and dark energy to explain the stuff that we can't see and we can't explain. But you can explain it. If you say that this ether is filled with unlimited energy, and you add up all the little fluctuations. So let's say we have fluctuations happening everywhere. Well, the universe is really, really big. So if you add up all the little fluctuations of the infinite size of the universe, what do you get? You get all of the dark matter and dark energy that you need that physics can't currently explain.
Yeah.
And right now what physics does is they say that all this stuff that's fluctuating around just adds up to zero. But is it really zero? No, it's not zero. So that's the tricky part, and I think people will figure that out in the time. And one more thing too is that why they're trying to debunk the Casimir effect? Yes, the Casimir effect proves that there's an ether as well. The reason why you take two plates and put them together, the reason why they come together like this is because the wavelengths of those fluctuations that are of the canvas can't fit through the distance between the two plates. So certain wavelengths can't figure through. And what happens? A negative pressure zone happens. Negative pressure, negative energy. And just the fact that you see this anomalous plate sticking together even happen. Like, how is that happening? Where's that force coming from? That's the interaction between the space-time ether and all the mass we see, our reality. Now, you can imagine just harnessing the Casimir effect and scaling it up. That's why every single paper you read about wormholes and warp drives, they all mention the Casimir force. All of them. And this is the part where people would say, well, I'm not really smart about this stuff. I wasn't very smart about it either 6 months ago. You'll keep reading these papers and you're going to see the same names pop up over and over and over again. Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, Casimir effect, negative energy, dark energy. Dark energy is negative energy. Like, that's one of the first things you figure out. And what do we need for wormholes and warp drives? Negative energy.
Yeah. There you go. Honestly, I think that's what the pyramids were doing. I think they were sucking energy out of the ether. All right, so let's just do this one real quick, and I think we're over time, so we're gonna let you go. Do you have any thoughts about any other incidents where the same type of technology was deployed?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, like I said before, I was never really a conspiracy theorist before this. I now do question everything. I was actually very against 9/11 conspiracies before this. And now I'm more open to it, but I still, to be perfectly honest with you, I still don't think that there was necessarily I don't think that like we use some type of directed energy weapon on the buildings. If I could get proven wrong, fine. I'm not going to crucify anybody over it or whatever. And when you're talking about a plane being able to be teleported away, you can't really judge other people's beliefs and conspiracies that are out there. So that's kind of how I look at it, is that just have an open mind. I think that if somebody tells you something is fake and you know it's fake, you don't get mad. You don't care. Like, somebody says, oh, the clouds are fake or the sky is green, and I see that it's blue, I'm just going to laugh and move on. But when you tell somebody, oh, we warped an aircraft away, they get super angry. People only get angry when they hear a horrible truth that they can't reconcile away, is what I come to find out. So if you take that attitude that like you shouldn't get angry at stuff that you think is fake, I think that you will live a good life. And I think that you should keep an open mind about everything. Even stuff like, there's a lot of people that it's funny, I get it from both sides on the alien stuff. Some people are like, no, aliens are 100% real. These have to be aliens. Ashton, you need to admit that there's aliens. And I have other people going, aliens are fake. Aliens are psyop. You got to believe there's no aliens. And I'm like, guys, the real way is just say you don't know, right? Unless you literally saw an alien, which I think that basically nobody has, like, you shouldn't be certain either way, and that's how I think this works. And I hope this investigation has inspired other people to do their own investigations and keep an open mind.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've sure learned a lot about physics in the past couple weeks. I'll tell you, it's something I'm definitely getting into, that's for sure. And just on a note, it's very possible that some of the clouds out there are fake.
Some of the clouds are fake. Maybe. I don't think they're holograms. I do want to address one more thing in the chat, because people say you're getting angry because you're using a falsehood for personal gain. I see that comment a lot. there's no more disingenuous argument than that in general. Like,
You know, what's your
you
game?
think the videos are fake, and I'm telling you, I know the videos are real. So imagine, I want the people that think the videos are fake to hold. Would you hold yourself to the same standard? If those videos end up being real, are you willing to throw yourself in jail? Are you willing to allow people to take all your money for lying about the real videos and you claiming them to be fake? Of course you're not. Nobody is holding themselves to the same standards. Again, I'm not using this for personal gain at all. I literally only make money off my social media, which I have a right to make money off of the people that want to listen to the stuff I'm saying. I'm not selling any books or anything related to this. Literally, the official story is no one knows what happened to the plane. This is like taking a cold case and like where somebody went missing and being like, you're making a story up using evidence and you're gaining personal stuff on it. Therefore, I'm going to get mad at you. There's no logical consistency there, man.
Well,
And like,
I mean,
think that,
and the videos
yeah.
have been out there for 10 years. Anybody could have done it.
Yeah, what's really happening is people are angry because they're realizing they've been lied to. Not by me, but they're realizing they've been lied to by the authority that they believe in. And they're not willing to accept that. And so what's happening to like the person that made that comment, I'm just going to call them out real quick. What was their name? Schizotoxia or whatever, is that they're having Schizotoxia is having cognitive dissonance because they're saying, oh, Ashton must be lying, because if Ashton's not lying, that means everything that I've believed to be true is a lie. And that can't be. And that's what happens with a lot of people that have cognitive dissonance, is instead of using logic and reason to come to their conclusions, they just imagine fake things up about me. I will 100% guarantee you I am not lying about any of this stuff. And many people have tried to prove me to be a liar, and they've all failed every single time. There's a reason for that. Because whether or not what I'm telling you is necessarily accurate, I'm not lying about what I know and what I know about the evidence. And I'm not making you believe it either. I don't go around into people's chats or streams going, you're a liar, this is all fake, because why would I care about that, right? It goes to show that if you're having an emotional reaction, you should probably look into your deep-seated beliefs and take a second guess at them and see, are they really supported by facts, or have you chosen to believe narratives that don't have any evidentiary support?
Yeah, it's honestly, if you don't agree with this, go do some physics. Go look into the physics of this. The science isn't going to lie. There's the science is there.
And the reason why I block people, first of all, I don't block people who disagree with me, actually. That's another fake narrative. So like I just said, people make these fake narratives up. You will find that 99.9% of the people that get blocked all say stuff like you're a grifter, you're a liar, whatever. Yes, I'm going to block you instantly, and you're never going to get unblocked when you do that. You do not have a right to bring negativity onto me, and I have no obligation to entertain you. It's my platform on my social medias, and I am going to block you and block all your fake accounts that you make. Some of these people make tons of accounts and just keep spamming me with fake crap. I'm going to block you when you do that. So act like an adult, guys. I'm raising the standards on social media. If you're going to be a troll piece of crap, you're going to get blocked. If you can't act like an adult, go outside and touch grass. Go do something else with your life.
Yeah. It bothers me when they start attacking people that actually support you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like when you're attacking other followers of mine that support me, that's where I got to draw the line as far as that goes.
And they do that a lot too. Like, this is why, I saw them doing that to Simon Howell. A lot of these people have serious issues, and like they start attacking me. Why dare you platform this person? I don't like this person. I don't like what they're saying. If you're that kind of person, you are a terrible human being, and you need to reevaluate your values. Imagine if somebody was doing that to you when you were out there telling the truth. Again, put yourself in the other person's shoes. I think that there's a lot of people, and especially on Reddit and other social medias, people get used to the anonymity where there's no consequences for the things that they say. And they just get used to acting like terrible human beings, where in the real world, they would never act like that. Most of these people that are attacking me, they would never say any of this to my face. Not ever in a million years. Act like you would in real life to somebody.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, just go do something else.
All right. Well, we kept you a bit over, so we apologize for that. Sometimes the conversation just gets going, and you hate to. But I do have one last question for you.
Oh yeah, sure.
Do you know who Corn Pop is?
Corn Pop? Is that? Am I supposed to know who that is?
No, it's just a question that me and the regulars ask every single guest that comes on the show. The answer to that is he's a bad dude.
Okay.
You have to Google them later. It's kind of an inside joke for all of us conflict radio people over here. So, hey, where can everybody find you? Why don't you tell everybody where all your info
so
is?
you can find me at JustXAshton right here on Twitter and on YouTube. I thought I was going to get onto TikTok, but man, I don't even really have time for it anymore. I'm even having to pull back a little bit just because of how much this has been taking. So I do want to thank everybody out there who's got open mind, all MH370X who's contributed, everybody who's gotten us to this point. I think that we've got like the best community out there. It's been awesome. So thanks everybody. It's not too late to follow along. So if you're brand new to this and you want to learn more, jump in, look through the highlights, dig into the science, and help us try to change the world.
All right. And everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, give the video a thumbs up because it does help the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment down in the description box. What do you think? I mean, was it a wormhole? Is it not a wormhole? Is it fake? Is it not fake? Let us know. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody. Till next time, batten down the hatches and be safe.